Welcome to the annual meeting of your association. This is the 87th annual such meeting. While certainly probably everyone like me, we wish we were together and enjoying fellowship and one of those big steaks. We're going to have to do it this way this year, and hopefully this is the only year we have to do it this way. Hopefully we'll be back to normal next year and have a big steak again. But this time I'm going to ask Dan Grigson to come give the invocation, please.
Would you bow with me, please? Our gracious Lord, we are so thankful for the many blessings you shower upon us every day. Lord, let us never take these many blessings for granted. Let us be thankful each and every moment of our life. Lord, we're thankful for our agricultural heritage, thankful for our rural way of life. Lord, we're just thankful for whatever role that each of us might play in our agriculture industry, and we ask for your guidance in our activities each and every day. Lord, we're thankful for Ag Credit. We're thankful for our farm credit system, and we're thankful for the staff and those that are out working every day to help our members and to help our agriculture industry and our rural heritage. Lord, we just ask now that you be with all of our member families that are represented in our association. Lord, we just ask that you protect them from the pandemic, the COVID problems, and so many have suffered losses from the winter storm and now from the flood. So Lord, I just ask that you be with the families out there and to give them the strength to carry on and to have good goals for the year ahead. We wish for them to have successful years, profitable years, Lord. We just ask that you continue to care for our membership, that you continue to care for our association, care for each and every one of us and our families. Lord, we just thank you that you walk with us each and every day. Lord, we thank you for your love and for your grace and your care for us. In the blessed name of Jesus, we do pray. Amen.
Thank you, Dan. There are several people who need to give thank yous to make this possible today. First, behind the screen behind me here, Ben Robin is taking care of all this technical stuff, keeping us going. We appreciate him very much. Lisa Adams has helped with the on-site portion here, getting everything set up for us. And we have a special guest with us from Senator Rand Paul's office, Field Representative Micah Sims. We're glad to have her with us. This time I'm going to introduce your directors. My name is Alvin Lyons. I'm from Scott County. I'm currently serving as your chair. Jim Rankin from Bourbon County is the vice chair. Dan Grigson, who you just met, is from Lincoln County, is one of the outside directors. Patrick Higginbottom from Fayette County is one of the directors. Mary Lynn Hinkle from Fayette County is the other outside appointed director. Lee Hood from Washington County is the director. And Joe Myers from Mercer County is the director. This time, it's time for the reading of the minutes. I would be glad to entertain a motion to dispense with that reading if you so please. A motion to hear a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Okay, that's taken care of. Okay, at this time, we're ready for the election process, which again is a little different this year, unfortunately, but Jim Caldwell is going to come up and explain that for us.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. It is going to be a little different for the election, so we'll try to work through that. We'll get through it together. I'll take some time here this afternoon to explain the eligibility requirements for voting stockholders. We'll talk about the positions that are to be filled in accordance with our bylaws. We'll receive the nominating committee report. We'll get nominations from the floor. Then we'll hear from our director nominees. And finally, we'll go into how the 2021 balloting will take place. One thing that hasn't changed about our election procedure is only Class C stockholders are eligible to vote. And each voting stockholder is entitled to only one vote, regardless of the number of single loans, joint loans, legal entity loans that stockholder may have with the association. This is the classic cooperative principle, one person, one vote rule. There is one vacancy occurring on our board of directors, which we are required to fill at this annual meeting, the term of Lee Hood from Washington County. The bylaws require at least 2 nominees for each vacancy occurring on the board. The nominees were selected by a nominating committee, which was elected at last year's annual meeting. This committee met on January the 12th, 2021 to consider nominees from the membership. You received a copy of the report of the nominating committee in the mail as part of the official annual meeting notice that you received. At this time, we will entertain a motion to accept the nominating committee report. Do we have a motion? Have a motion, and we need a second. Motion and a second. All in favor of the acceptance of the nominating committee report, please raise your right hand. And any opposed? Motion carries. Our bylaws do provide for nominations from the floor, and this is where the meeting gets a little bit different this year, being a virtual meeting. Nominees for director may come from any county, except the county where an active director lives whose term is not expiring. And nominations can in fact be made from the floor for any open position. Nominations from the floor must be made and seconded by a voting stockholder and accepted by the nominee. This is where it gets a little tricky being virtual. And if you remember, if you looked at your annual meeting information statement, one of the things that it talked about was how we would verify those folks, and we would verify them by phone. So if we have floor nominees, we will need a motion and a second. And then we will also need to contact the nominee to make sure that all those folks are voting stockholders and that they accept the nomination. Any nominee from the floor must also complete the disclosures in accordance with the FCA regulations. And you receive these as well in writing in the annual meeting information statement. So there on the screen, you kind of see the new rules for the nominations from the floor. These were all outlined in point 10 of the annual meeting information statement. So floor nominations, as it exists in a virtual meeting, we can make them in one of two ways. You can make them by WebEx, and in just a moment, we're going to unmute all the WebEx connections that we have out there so that we could hear any nomination. Or you can call us here at 859-253-3249. That number was in your annual meeting information statement as well. I will repeat it though, 859-253-3249. You may call that number or use a WebEx to make a floor nomination. So at this point, we will open the floor for floor nominations for director position 1. We'll pause for a little bit because of the technology involved in doing this. Make sure we give everybody adequate time for floor nominations for director position 1 or floor nominations for the 2022 nominating committee. We'll wait just a moment. Okay, can I then have a motion that the nominations cease? We have a motion for nominations to cease. Do we need a second? We have a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And any opposed, like sign. Motion is carried. Director candidate bios were provided in your annual meeting information statement. And so at this time, we'll ask the two candidates for directors to come up and make any remarks that they might wish to make. The first candidate for position 1 is Barry Drury, 500 Elliston Lane, for sales in Woodford County. Mr. Drury.
Thank you. It felt a little awkward walking in and not doing the typical handshake and the greetings that we always do, but it's good to see all of you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Barry Drury. My real name is Byron, but my friends call me Barry. I'm a part-time farmer. I farm about 150 acres in Woodford County, small, I'm sure, as compared to many of you. I live on 95 acres in the south end of Woodford County. I call it the poor man's section of Woodford County, down close to the river. But I purchased that when I was 23 years old, and I run a cow-calf operation, and I also sell premium hay to the horse farm market, both round and square. I was born and raised in Versailles, Woodford County, living on my grandfather's farm, Melvin Flora. Some of you may have known him. He did a lot of farming in Woodford County and Pin Oak before it became a horse farm. Both my grandfathers, Melvin Flora and Bill Drury, farmed, and that's where I picked up the love of farming. Or maybe it was the tractors and equipment. I'm not real sure. But here I am, 57 years old, and I still love it. I'd rather sit on a tractor and cut hay or bale hay than I would about anything else, except maybe going to the lake. I do love my time on the boat. I wanted to farm, but my parents pushed me to go to college, and I did. I went to University of Kentucky. I graduated with a degree in agricultural economics. After a short stint with Kraft Foods and Sylvania Lamp Plant, I landed a job with the Electric Cooperative. I worked for Bluegrass Energy Cooperative for over 32 years, eventually becoming Vice President of Member Services. Bluegrass Energy serves 60,000 members in 23 counties in central and north central Kentucky in an area from Berea to the south, Ohio River to the north. We called our customers members at Bluegrass Energy because we were a cooperative, just like you. Our members owned us, and everything we did, every decision we made, was about making life better for them, which I'm sure is very similar to what you do. I recently retired from Bluegrass Energy in order to focus on the farm and other business ventures. Before I say anything else, please allow me to hit the pause button and let's talk about something important. Safety was number one priority at Bluegrass Energy. As most of you know, lineman jobs are very dangerous, and we always talked about safety every day. Farming is pretty daggone dangerous in itself. So I'd like to just carry this habit over to the farm. And, you know, when you're out there getting ready to operate a piece of equipment, we're getting ready to come spring planting season. We're going to be nervous and wound pretty tight and trying to get the hurry and beat the rain. Be careful. Think about what you're doing. Think about the job at hand. Make sure the shields are in place on those power takeoff shafts. Make sure the mud's off the step of the tractor. Don't get hurt. So just take some time and be safe. So carrying on, in addition to the farm, I also have 9 rental properties that I own and manage. All of those are in for sales. After retiring from Bluegrass Energy this past December, I started a new business called Drury Lawn Seeding, and I'm doing power seeding, aeration, weed control, fertilization, and other lawn care services. As you can tell, I don't like to sit still. I enjoy serving my community. I serve as director of the Woodford County Farm Bureau. I also serve as a commissioner of the Woodford County Planning and Zoning Commission. I serve on the board of directors for the Kentucky Forage and Grassland Council as well. I have served as president in the past for the Woodford County Farm Bureau, the Woodford County Chamber of Commerce, and the Anderson County Chamber of Commerce. As you can see, I care about the communities in which I live and work. I believe that we all need to give back to our communities whenever we can. I've been doing business with Ag Credit for several years. I have a self-propelled problem. I like green paint. Ag Credit helps me put green paint on the farm. I like the fact that Ag Credit is a cooperative. Cooperatives are near and dear to my heart, as I put in over 32 years at one of them. I know how they operate. Cooperatives are different from organizations in a good way. You're owned by those you serve. You know, we always bragged at Bluegrass Energy, where else could you go and walk in a place and talk to the CEO? You can't do that at too many organizations. My loan officer is a Versailles native, Willie Wilson, and I just felt the need to throw a plug in for Willie. So I'll make sure you take care of Willie. He does a good job. I appreciate the opportunity to serve as a director for Ag Credit if I get elected. And if I do get elected, I'll give you 110%. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry. Also for Director Position 1, we have Lee Hood, 506 North Doctor Street in Springfield in Washington County. Lee.
Thank you, Jim. As Jim mentioned, my name is Lee, and I'm from Springfield. Before I go any further, I'd like to first take this opportunity to thank the membership for electing me 4 years ago. I am so proud to be a member of this board, and I want the whole membership to know how dedicated everyone at Ag Credit is to making sure that you have a strong financial institution to provide financing for your operations. At the last election, I shared a story, and it's so fitting of who I am and how I got here that I think I need to share it again. My farming career began at the age of 12. My family moved to a 1,500-acre farm after my dad accepted the farm manager position. Now, my brother, being a boy, got to spend lots of time with Dad on the farm, while because he was a boy. While my sister and I spent most of our time trying to get Dad to realize that a girl could do anything a boy could do, especially drive a tractor. Dad's excuse was always that he didn't have time, but one day he had to make time. We were square baling alfalfa and had just enough people to run a second baling crew if only there were a tractor driver. So here was my chance. Dad looked at me and said, "So you want to drive a tractor? Well, get on." I positioned myself in the seat of the very old 135 and excitedly grabbed the wheel. Dad, standing on the ground beside me, looked at me and said, "That's the clutch. There's the brake. Keep it between the bales." Now, that is not much instruction for a 12-year-old girl, her first time on a tractor, but I figured it out, and I've loved farming ever since. That day in that hayfield, on that very tractor, at only 12 years old, I knew that I wanted to raise my family on a farm someday. I continued to work on the farm throughout high school and college and graduated with a bachelor's degree in accounting. For 16 years, I have worked as the chief financial officer for Clemens Ag Supply, and JP and I were very fortunate to be granted the opportunity to purchase a portion of that store and begin our own feed business as Blandford Mills. I have truly enjoyed my work because I get to be a farmer and an accountant at the same time, and I love interacting with all of our customers and learning about their operations and helping them. Away from the store, we are a very busy farm family. Together, we have 6 kids, ranging in age from 2 to 28, and we farm a total of 900 acres. Our primary focus is our 200 mama cows, and we back around about 300 head of feeder calves each year. We include the kids in everything we do, not only because we need the help, but because we want them to grow up feeding animals, baling hay, and chasing cows, just the way we did. We want them to be a part of everything so that they understand the importance of what we do. Every night, when the girls come out of the chicken coop, excited about how many eggs they got that day, I am reminded of why I want to serve on this board. I feel so blessed to have gotten to grow up on a farm. I learned so many life lessons that have made me who I am today, and I would not be the same without that upbringing. This is why we have worked so hard to make the same life for our kids, and why I want that life for as many other kids in our territory as possible. I hope that in some way, my work on this board allows another family to purchase some animals, some land, or some equipment so that their kids will have the same opportunity that I did. I sincerely appreciate your consideration for this position and promise to serve with the utmost integrity. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. The names of the nominees for the 2022 Nominating Committee are Jacob Kreider, David Goodlett, Amanda Lewis Hall, Gregory Harris, Nick Rogers, Dwayne Ruckel, and Jacob C. Balloting is where it really will be different in 2021. All eligible Class C voting stockholders will be mailed a ballot this year instead of collecting your ballot at the actual meeting. These ballots are going to be mailed 10 business days from today. They will be mailed to the address of the voting stockholder. There will also be included in that packet an option for online voting. The packet will also have biographical information on the director nominees. The polls will be open for 20 business days following the date the ballots are mailed. And after the polls close, we have an independent third party who will tally the ballots. And those results will be posted on our website and in our Leader magazine. This slide shows you a sample ballot, the material that you will receive in the mail. As you can see, it's going to come with an ag credit letterhead, logo on the envelope, with the voting instructions and a return address to the company who is handling the election for us, the company called Survey and Ballot Systems in Minnesota. The information required to vote online will be included on your ballot sheet. And finally, here is the election calendar for 2021. Today, our virtual annual meeting. March 15th, 10 business days from today, the ballots will be mailed to voting stockholders. For those of you who are wondering why those weren't ready, why aren't those out today? Think back to the floor nominations. We are required by our bylaws and by FCA regulations to have floor nominations. So we couldn't produce the ballots until we accomplished the meeting today to see whether or not we had floor nominations so that we could complete the ballot. So the ballot is now able to be completed and will be mailed on March the 15th. 20 business days from then, the polls will close at midnight. That's April the 12th. And the results will be announced on April the 13th. I thank all the stockholders, members in advance for your participation in this year's election. Thank you.
So every year at the annual meeting, we like to recognize some of the staff and directors who have reached milestones in their careers with Ag Credit. And without going off script too far, I think I can say that on behalf of the board, I would like to voice our appreciation to what all of the staff has done this year. It's been an incredibly difficult year for reasons I don't have to talk about. And you all have done a fantastic job. And it's not a secret to. So we appreciate that and just want to say thanks. But for the service recognitions for this year, we like to recognize people that have hit milestones in years served. And so of the staff members, Lisa Adams, an administrative assistant in the admin office here in Lexington, has been with us for 5 years. Courtney Barton Slogger is an assistant vice president and marketing specialist here in the administrative office in Lexington. She has been with us for 5 years. Cole Mattingly, a loan officer in the Lebanon office, is 5 years as well. And Thomas Whitaker, the controller here in the admin office, has been with us for 5 years. Willie Wilson, the regional lending manager for the Lexington and Paris offices, has been with us for 10 years. Tina Roney is a senior loan assistant in the Danville office, has been with us for 20 years. And to cap all of that off, we have someone who's been with us for 40 years who just retired at the end of February, and it was Paul Weiler. And we put together a few things just to give you a little bit of idea of who Paul is. He was born and raised on a dairy farm in Lincoln County, graduated from UK with a degree in agriculture, and was subsequently hired by Cecil Ellis Jr. on February 23rd, 1981 to work for Central Kentucky Production Credit Association, or PCA. So that was in 81. He started as a field representative in the Stanford PCA office. He's worked many important roles across his 40-year career, including he was an area manager, he's been an association appraiser, and a credit analyst. And his most recent role was Vice President of Credit and Collateral Evaluation Coordinator. So this is a guy who's given 40 years of his life to this organization and done it very well and very honorably. And so we would especially like to thank Paul for his time with us. And Paul, I hope you have a great retirement. We look forward to still seeing you around. And as a board director, Mr. Alvin Lyons, who is our board chair, has been with us for 20 years, and he has served faithfully this organization as a board member for 20 years. So on behalf of the rest of the board, we'd like to thank all these people and appreciate your service to Ag Credit, Central Kentucky Ag Credit.
Thank you, Patrick. Now it's time for the director's report. It's my honor to give that. Last year, as we all know, was very challenging in many ways, but it was very successful for your association. Jim will share some very impressive numbers here in a few minutes, and the results that we've had. It's been quite impressive. But I want to take a minute to echo what Patrick just said about the staff and the phenomenal job they did over the last year, getting through all the troubles and issues. They kept the farms funded. They did a boatload of note mods to lower your rates. So we just appreciate them so much. And I did want to mention that before I got into the actual report. The Board of Directors is responsible for the general control and direction of the affairs of the association. These responsibilities are accomplished through strategic direction, business planning, policy making, and oversight of organizational performance. The board selects, determines the salary, and describes the duties of the president and chief executive officer. The president is responsible for the day-to-day management of the association. Your board of directors is required to meet quarterly, but we normally meet monthly, typically on the third Thursday of each month. The board officers include the chair and vice chair. I serve as your board chair. Jim Rankin serves as the vice chair. The board has 2 subcommittees charged with oversight in 2 critical areas of operation. These subcommittees are Audit Committee and Human Resources Committee. Lee Hood is the chair of the Audit Committee. Mary Lynn Hinkle serves as chair of the Human Resources Committee. She is also the board's designated financial expert. For the year, 9 scheduled board meetings were held. During the initial COVID restrictions, board meetings were held totally virtually, but as the restrictions began to ease, board meetings transitioned to a hybrid model where some of us met in person, some were joined in virtually, but we didn't miss a meeting. We had them all, but some of them were a little different. This meeting was facilitated by an outside, in a similar fashion, the board members participated in a designated planning meeting held in September. This meeting was facilitated by an outside professional who assisted the board and management in developing key strategic initiatives and setting the direction for the future of the association. The session included a board evaluation component, which incorporated a look at the strengths and weaknesses in an effort to identify areas where the board can make improvements. In early 2020, before the COVID travel restrictions got set in, Directors Higginbottom, Myers, Rankin, and myself attended a director advancement program. This was a 3-day regional director training program, which included participants from throughout the AgFirst and Texas Farm Credit districts. However, for most of 2020, the limitations on the in-person meetings changed the way those trainings were held. But even through those restrictions, board members were able to participate in several virtual training sessions throughout the year. Among these were training for the HR and Compensation Committee, Audit Committee, and a new course designed to provide us with insight into cybersecurity. It's a pretty scary field right now, as we all know. This training was designed to help directors build an understanding of why cybersecurity is a business risk that needs to be factored into everyday decisions. I also serve as director on the AgFirst Farm Credit Bank Board. My first 4-year term began in January of 2018. Also a member and chair of the Independent Association Retirement Trust Committee. That's a retirement group for the 4 associations from the old Louisville district, which is Central Kentucky, the old Jackson Purchase, which is now River Valley, and Ohio, the Farm Credit, Ag Credit in Ohio. There's 3, I'm sorry, it's 4. Jim Rankin, third, serves as the association representative on the AgFirst District Advisory Committee. This group includes representatives from each association and is organized to provide AgFirst with objective advice in areas of strategic importance to the district. Dan Grixon serves as the association representative on the newly formed Legislative Advisory Committee. This committee monitors regulatory and political activity that may impact the system. And finally, Mr. Rankin served as the association's 2020 representative on the AgFirst District Nominating Committee. For 2021, Joe Myers will fill that role. Annually, the association business plan and budget for operating income, expenses, and capital expenditures are reviewed and approved. At each regular meeting, all delegated lending authority was reviewed. Also, the income and expense of the association was reviewed and a comparison made with the budget. Actions of the Asset Liability Committee were reviewed and approved on a quarterly basis. The following audits and reports were presented to and reviewed by the board: an independent audit by the accounting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers, the association's internal credit and operations review, a review of the association's appraisal function, an independent audit of the association's credit, operations, and IT areas, testing of the association's internal controls over financial reporting. These audits and reviews show that your association is in a very strong position for the future. While the audits were very clean and only found very minor findings, the president was instructed to take any corrective action needed. In summary, the board of directors wish to express our appreciation to the shareholders for allowing us to serve on your behalf. We take the responsibility seriously and will continue to work for the best interest of the association and its members. this time. Jim is going to come and give the financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. "2020." I mean, there you go. That's all you need to say, isn't it? A year to remember. You know, you try to put this in words and you just quickly realize there's just no way you can do it justice. But it certainly was a year to remember. And thinking back to the beginning of the year, 2020, where we were, even a year ago, we were able to have our annual stockholders meeting in person. It was one of the last public events that we were able to do. It was right at the end of February, if you remember. And we all thought we were just rolling right along and everything was good. And so many words are in our vocabulary now that were not in our vocabulary a year ago. And it just really is amazing what happened. And we didn't see it coming, and it was just around the corner. I think that once it hit us pretty hard. And for us, it seemed like the impact began around the week of March 9th. Almost overnight, things seemed to change. And that was the week they canceled the SEC tournament. I mean, that really got our attention, didn't it? Because everybody was down there ready to go. And then all of a sudden they canceled it. It's like, this is pretty serious stuff if they're canceling these big events. We had some staff who were traveling during that time. And the difference in what was going on when they left early in the week to when they came home late in the week was night and day difference. It really changed fast. We all hoped, if you think back to those days back in March and April, we all hoped it was going to be a short-lived lockdown. You know, we were all hopeful of that. We were also all wrong. We experienced extended closures that led to school closings, business closings, that unsettling sight that we all saw of empty store shelves and empty meat counters. I don't think I'll ever forget that. But probably one of the hardest things that we had to encounter was physical separation, especially from our extended families, as we tried to isolate ourselves to slow down the spread of the virus. But even those difficulties don't even begin to compare with those who suffered loss during the year. And our prayers continue to be with them today and deep into the future. We learned a lot about ourselves in 2020. From the association's perspective, which is my job at this time, we learned that it was important to have a cooperative lending institution. We were designated early in the pandemic as an essential financial services business. And that basically meant that the services we provide were necessary for the good and the common welfare of the nation. We maintained our operations throughout the shutdowns. Certainly we had challenges and we had different delivery methods. There was an 11-week period there where our offices were closed to the public. We had visits by appointment only. But in early June, we were able to open our offices back up and with social distancing and a lot of care and caution and twice a week cleaning of all of our offices, we were able to get back to some semblance of a normal operation. But through all of this, we were able to fund your liquidity and capital needs each and every day, even during the most unstable moments of the outbreak. Our ability to access the funds needed to plant the 2020 crop, purchase livestock, make necessary equipment repairs and purchases, and even buy additional land was uncompromised. I'm proud of the work our staff performed because through it all, our focus remained on our commitment to serve farmers and rural residents. This focus and this commitment yielded results. Some are measurable and some are intangible. But since we're our lending institution, let's take a look at some of the measurable results from 2020. When I do this report every year, I always look at the same group of financial indicators. And it's done that way to kind of look at trends and fluctuations and to see what continuity we have among the results. But for most years, I like to switch up where we start. And it kind of depends on which result I think was most significant to the overall report. For 2020, it all starts with earnings. And I think as we get into the report and the results, you'll see why. In 2020, your association had $15.67 million in net income, which represents the single highest year net income figure in the history of the association. That net income translates to a return on equity of 15.58%. We think about it, we're going to see our equity number a little bit later on, and it's about $100 million. So $15.67 million in income translates to 15.58% return on equity because of that $100 million number. That's why those numbers are so close. But I like to look at return on equity. To me, it's a number we can all get our minds around because it's really a measure of what did the stockholders' investment return. And it returned 15.58% in 2020. That's the 11th consecutive year we have exceeded 10%. And I say each year of all the 10 preceding years, and I'll say it for the 11th year, any investment with those types of returns is something special. In 2020, we saw an increase in our operating expenses, and we anticipated this increase due in large part to the pension expense and an overall increase in general operation expenses. But in spite of this increase in expenses, we were able to have the strong earnings result that you see here. This earnings success was a result of a combination of factors, primarily strong asset growth as we continued to experience loan volume growth, and we saw the benefits of that larger lending base. We look to some graphs. We look at this graphically, and we see kind of the last 5 years trend. 2018 and 19, we were able to move beyond that $10 million mark into about a $12 million mark in net earnings. But you can see from the graph that the increase in 2020 was significant. And now you can see why I started with net income as my first financial measure. We moved well past the $12 million mark to the $15 million mark. And here you see the why. The why did we get to $15.67 million? This is a breakdown of the 2020 income sources. Core earnings at the top. This is the portion of earnings. We would call this a more recurring type of earnings. This is the return from operations, the normal operations of the organization. But in the middle of this chart, you see the major driver for the record earnings of 2020, and it is a special distribution from Ag First Farm Credit Bank to the tune of $5.6 million. So graphically, we look at this special income sources and the trend of these over the last 5 years, the red bar being our core earnings and the green being special distribution. This is what that 5-year trend looks like. And it points to the success of the cooperative model as the special distribution results in this $5.7 million dividend and really boosted our earnings for 2020. This significant increase in special distribution from Ag First was primarily due to their excellent job in asset liability management in a low interest rate environment that we had in 2020. For the past several years, as part of this financial report, I've talked about the impact of the special distributions resulting from our affiliation, our cooperative affiliation, along with 18 other similar institutions with Ag First. Over the past 11 years, the association has received $30 million in special distribution. And you just cannot overstate the impact that this cooperative model has had on our organization. But as a stockholder, you like to peel back the special distribution. They're not guaranteed. There's nothing that says we'll get one in 2021. So as a stockholder, you want to say, what are the core earnings? What are the recurring earnings for the organization? And this graph shows us the core earnings, income from normal lending operations. You can graphically see that core earnings increased only slightly in 2020. And this again is back to that operating expense increase that we saw. But we are pleased that we were able to continue the upward trend of our core earnings for 2020. Well, let's turn the corner and look at some of the balance sheet measures as we continue to look at 2020. So first, we'll look at our assets. And this was a year for the association, significant growth. Year-end assets were $621 million. Since most of our assets are loans, our December 31, 2020 total assets reflects growth in our loan portfolio. And we saw very strong loan volume growth in 2020. And we think this was attributed to the low interest rates, which spurred a lot of activity in our market, particularly in real estate markets. And the other side of that coin, we think about ag credit and the farm loans that we made, and there was an increased interest in rural properties. People buying farms, seemed like demand was up. But there definitely was an increase in rural housing, an increase in demand for rural housing in 2020. We all witnessed the strong home loan market in the Central Kentucky region, and high demand for rural housing was definitely a contributing factor to our loan volume growth in 2020. Here it is on a trend over the last several years, and you can see graphically how 2020 really does turn a corner here as our loan volume exceeded the $600 million mark for the first time in association history. Along those same lines, on the balance sheet, we have to talk about capital. Sometimes we talk about this first. It is a very important financial measure. In fact, it's perhaps the most important financial measure. This is capital, or sometimes referred to as members' equity. At December 31, 2020, the association's capital was $106 million. We predicted last year at the annual meeting that we would surpass $100 million in 2020. Last year it was $95 million. And this year it's $106 million. So we did surpass 100 million and then some. And this is a direct correlation. This increase of $11 million is a direct correlation to the strong earnings that we saw. That $15 million, some of it's going to be patronage to the stockholders, and some of it's going to go to build our capital for the organization. And once again, you see why we led with the net income in the presentation. Here it is graphically over the last 5 years. I love this slide because it's not doctored in any way, shape, or form, and it is definitely a stair step up each and every year that shows how our capital has grown in a stable, steady manner. And in an organization that has asset growth, you want your capital growth, you want your capital levels to keep pace with that growth. And I think this slide demonstrates that better than anything. This doesn't do too bad on either, though. This is another way to look at that. And this is with a line chart. And I think the significance here is just a steady annual increase each passing year. Capital growth is a sign of a healthy business because capital is foundational. It's necessary and critical to you on your farming operation due to the volatility of agricultural production and marketing, and the same holds true for us. A lender to agriculture, we must have a firm capital foundation. Well, let's take it to the home stretch and talk about 2020 as a year of cooperation. The cooperative model is one of the areas considered to be important to you, our membership. We are unique in the marketplace because of this model, and it is under the cooperative model umbrella that we have the governance that's being practiced even today with the election of directors and a nominating committee from among the membership. But also under the umbrella of cooperation are patronage distributions associated with the implementation of cooperative principles. The 2020 record earnings is translated, as you would expect, into record patronage distribution for the members of an estimated $5.3 million. Our patronage continues to be 100% cash with no waiting period for the full allocation, and these distributions effectively reduce your cost of borrowing. At these 2020 levels, this is approximately 20% of PAT-sourced interest paid. Here's a 5-year look at patronage, and again, kind of like that earnings chart you saw, you can see a distinct difference in 2020. Certainly, the special distributions helped boost our levels of patronage, and that is particularly evident in 2020. And those distributions, thinking about the cooperative model and the overall casting a net over not only the association, but 18 other associations and Ag First, to have those distributions come at a time when our farmers are managing through the challenges associated with the pandemic are truly a blessing to us. Let's take a quick look forward and wrap this up. Take a moment and look into 2020 a little bit. And we've already talked a lot as we have looked back at our people. And the people of this organization starts with the membership and how well you do in taking care of your loans, the credit quality that we have, the low past dues that we're able to enjoy, just the overall quality of the portfolio at Central Kentucky is a testament to the membership and how well you take care of business. The commitment of our directors is also part of our people, and we saw this again, as Mr. Lyons said, in giving his director's report. In spite of all the challenges and the new ways of meeting, not a single board meeting was missed during 2020. And then finally, the staff is the other part of our people, and appreciate the comments from some of the board there about our staff. You know, our organization is not unlike almost every organization in the nation, in that we had a large segment of the staff who were baby boomers, who were approaching retirement age. And we've seen this coming. We've talked about it probably for a dozen years. We said the train's rolling down the track, and we see it, and it's going to come upon us at some point in time. Well, for Ag Credit, really, that train's pretty much already rolled on by. I was looking at our overall staff makeup, and believe it or not, at the end of 2020, about 50% of our staff has been with us less than 5 years. So about 50% less than 5 years and about 50% more than 5 years. So we've already made that transition. And I will say, in looking at that, looking at the list on both sides of that 5-year line, what a solid, dedicated team we have. And even with that breakup, and you say, well, 5 years less than 50% less than 5 years, the average tenure is still about just over 10 years for the organization. So I think we've got a good balance here in the makeup of the staff. And I think 2020 really showed us a whole lot about what that staff was capable of doing. Because as has already been mentioned, in addition to the normal lending demand, we worked on payment deferrals, we worked on note mods and other loan servicing options to assist our members in taking advantage of the volatile and low rate interest rate markets. In 2021, we've seen the service trend of our staff in how we have started making the PPP loans, the Small Business Administration PPP loans, where we're assisting farmers and small businesses, again, with pandemic relief. And we are actively involved in that even today. So we are a service organization, and 2020 has shown, I think, more maybe than any year that I can think of, just what a service organization we are, which leads us with our future. And our future continues to be focused on our mission. And this is the Ag Credit mission. This is where it all comes together. In spite of all the challenges we've seen, Ag Credit, Central Kentucky Ag Credit, exists today to serve farmers and rural homeowners, just like we did in 1934 when we were organized as part of the nationwide farm credit system. The system has a clear mission. You see it on the screen: to support agriculture and rural communities with reliable, consistent credit and financial services. That phrase, reliable and consistent today and tomorrow, makes me think of a quote from our board chair, Alvin Lyons. When he was asked for a personal statement explaining his desire to serve as a board member, here's what he said: "I have a sincere desire to do all I can to preserve the farm credit system for future generations. I feel strongly the best way to do that is through the cooperative model." I think his words sum up how all of us participating in this annual meeting feel. Whether you're a member, director, or on staff, or just an interested party, we're all working toward that same end. So in closing, I'm pleased to report to you, our stockholders, our members, advocates for our cooperative, that we are indeed well positioned for the future and for this mission that challenges us all. Thank you for your interest in the association and your continued support in 2021.
Jim, for that very positive report. We're quite proud of that. I just want to take this time to thank all the membership for your interest and participation in the association and making this association as strong as it is. I want to remind everyone to look for their ballots. They'll be out pretty soon, and then be mailed, like I said, after March the 15th. They'll show up in your mailbox, and they're due back in. They have to be in by April the 12th to be counted. So I would urge you to, I have a tendency to kind of pile mail up, well, I'd urge you to get this one done as soon as you get it, or go online. There is an online option, and that may be the best option. We've all had some issues with mail timeliness lately, so either get it in quickly or do it online. I'd encourage you to. With that, I'm ready to call the meeting to a close. Again, thank you, and have a great, successful year.